First off, I love breakfast, and many would say the signs are on yet, but anyway. I'd just give you a quick insight into our panel today. So, Elaine, you're from Kerry, are you?
Yes, yeah.
Yes. Been on breakfast for 14 years. I'm going to do a bit of a Pat Kenny, by the way, on this. May not be as polished as Pat Kenny, but I'll do my very best. So apologies if I have my back to you. Ian Dempsey, been on Today FM breakfast for 20 years. Am I right in that?
I don't count.
No, you're right.
I was always told, Andy, if you count and you have anniversaries for your show and all that, that management sort of say, is that shit still on?
You're right, Ian. Keep the head down. Niall Power just celebrated 12 years on Breakfast on Beat.
That's right.
Last week.
Yeah.
Last week, right. And haven't killed anybody yet? No?
No, not yet.
Okay. And Adam, 22 years?
Not on breakfast though.
No.
So 22 years at the BBC, and now I've got somebody who gets up in the morning on my behalf.
Right.
At about 4:30.
Yeah.
And goes into work for me, so I don't have to get up
Right,
early
okay.
anymore. Which is nice.
Nice job.
Yeah.
Look good, yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Ian, you should check that out. It might work for you.
That'll be the BBC. I suppose, so the first question, it's kind of, why breakfast? Elaine, I'll start with you. Why breakfast? How did you end up there?
I didn't choose breakfast, so it was the gig I was offered, so
Right, okay.
I just took it. I started on a 1-hour show in the afternoon for about 6 months. I think they were just trying me out. And then it was Radio Kerry's first two-hander breakfast show was just about to start, so I got offered that with one of the presenters who'd been there a good few years. So it was kind of accidental, really, that I ended up in breakfast, but I do love being on breakfast.
Okay. And even the early mornings. Do they still suit?
Yeah, I mean, as time goes by, it gets a little bit harder to juggle things around. My first few years on breakfast, I was in my 20s and I didn't have any children, and now I've got a 7-year-old daughter, so things logistically get a little bit more difficult in the mornings. But no, I love being on early and love being finished early as well, which is great.
Right, okay. But you're head of music as well.
Yeah.
So how do you juggle that?
So I usually, when I come off breakfast, I'll do maybe an hour of just looking back at what we did, looking ahead to tomorrow's show, and then I usually spend most of the rest of the day doing music stuff.
Okay.
Until I get home that night. And then, like Niall and I were talking about earlier, you're kind of just never off the clock
Constantly
now at this
on,
stage. And so there's a lot of social media stuff to be done right across the day up till I'm in bed at night, usually still on Facebook and Snapchat and Twitter for the breakfast show.
Okay, very hard work, isn't it? Ian,
Yeah.
long time on breakfast?
The first breakfast show I did was on a pirate radio station on Bachelor's Walk called Capital Radio, not the one that became FM 104, but another Capital Radio with an OL. And I was on it. I think I was given the breakfast show because nobody else was bothered getting up at that hour of the morning, so I did it and I enjoyed it. And then I kind of moved into other to ARD and 257 and other pirate stations. Then I joined RTE and I did a early morning weekend breakfast show. And then I went on to other things like Hotline and afternoon shows and lunchtime shows. But then I found my home, I suppose, in breakfast. Again, a bit like Elaine. I didn't ask for it, but I was asked would I have a go at it. And I did. And for some reason, I mean, I used to be always fascinated by people like Mike Murphy on Radio 1. Well, it was RTE radio at the time. There was no 1 or 2. And I used to love listening to Mike. And I mean, it struck me just recently that nothing has really changed, because he used to do kind of little funny bits. He used to read out letters. He used to do competitions. He used to play music, which is kind of essentially what we all do now on breakfast shows. So although it seems like everything has changed and everything is digital and everything, it's still all about just kind of connecting with an audience. But I just started into that, and I came off it for about 3 months. I think Maxi took it over for 3 months, and then they asked me to go back on it again, and I went on, and then I was poached, as the big poster said, brought over to Today FM, and now I've been with Today FM longer than I was ever with RTE, which is kind of odd, although people still ask me, oh, how are you getting on in that new place?
What about television and radio? which do you prefer, or is that?
Oh, radio, without a doubt. Television, too many people are depending on you in television, and it's so slow and it's so cumbersome, and you can't create a kind of a picture in people's heads. So, I mean, I think radio is my first love, always has been. And I kind of fell into a lot of jobs actually, but I fell into TV and I kept doing that. But I was happy to leave that behind me, and I've no ambitions to be on television. And I'm obviously a lot uglier than I was when I was in the den all those years ago. You know.
Yeah. Do you miss Sig and Zag?
We keep in touch.
Very good. Niall, I'll come back to you because you're the only one who actually did their homework, and Niall has a video, which we'll see in just a few moments. But anyway, we won't get into that. Adam, obviously Northern Ireland, I mentioned the Brexit word a little bit earlier on, and the other three, don't ask me. Yeah, exactly. What does it mean to you and the BBC?
Yeah, well, it's a big challenge. You know, one of the things about breakfast programs, as far as speech is concerned, is that we're able to, I suppose, take an opportunity to compete for listening time with people, because people have busy lives. At breakfast time, people maybe they have caring responsibilities, maybe they've got a stressful day ahead in work, maybe they're under pressure in their family life. So there's all kinds of things going on in people's lives around breakfast time, and one of our, I suppose, responsibilities is to be useful to people. And so the subject of Brexit and explaining that to people and making what is quite a complex issue simple to people in the mornings is, I suppose, one of our key tasks, and it's not easy. That's been very, very difficult, and part of the reason for that is that knowing who to trust and knowing how to interrogate to get the right information in order to tell that story is very, very difficult. It's as tough as any environment that I've been in the last 22 years. I started in 95.
Okay, very politician-like there. You actually avoided the whole Brexit situation, which I thought was excellent. Niall, we'll come to you now. You have a pirate background as well.
Yeah, I started in the 90s Pirates, the kind of second incarnation, when there was no youth radio in Ireland, so we had to kind of make some noise to bring it about. So it was a station called ABC Power 104 in Waterford, which was one of the big ones at the time. You had Pulse in Dublin, Radio Friendly in Cork. So it was great. It was great discipline in pirate radio at the time in terms of training young people. And from that I got opportunities to internship in 98. And that's when I kind of fell in love with breakfast, because I used to arrive in at 8:30 in the morning. At the time it was Mark Byrne and Debbie Allen, and I just thought there was something really special about waking a city or a country up and being that first voice that people hear in the morning, and you can really have an impact on how their day goes, because often people are alone in the morning, they get up on their own, they drive to work on their own, so you're part of their crew. So yeah, it's special.
Okay, very good. From the point of view of co-presenters, because I know you have two. Yeah. So they are?
Vinny and Trish.
Vinny and Trish, who aren't here.
Trish is here. She's down the back there.
Oh, there she is there, yeah. So I was going to ask you which one do you get on with best, but maybe that's not
I'll say Trish, of course.
Right, okay.
Totally Trish.
Yeah. But Elaine, you've been through 5 co-presenters.
I've been through 5, yeah, thanks for that.
Well, you said it.
I've had all the jokes. Yeah, I've had 5. It's unusual, I suppose. Is it unusual? I think it is it?
Are you like the praying mantis in the radio world?
Yeah. I think it might be some kind of record. All right. Yeah, I'm on my 5th co-presenter. In 14 years, is that a lot? 5 in 14 years? Nah, it's not that many, is it?
No, I suppose.
Nah, it's grand.
You'll have another 5 to go through it.
Yeah, but I think in some ways, consistency is obviously something that's really important for listenership. And I'm not saying it's great that I've stayed for 14 years, but it's great probably that somebody did. Because I think when you're talking about schedules and you're talking about becoming part of people's lives and part of people's routines, it's very, very important, I think, to be consistent. And the fact that one of us has been there for the full haul of Kerry's Full Breakfast has been a good thing. But I really do love working with somebody. And when one of us is off, so if Andrew's off, he's not replaced, I just do the show on my own. And I mean, those mornings feel like they go on forever. I definitely prefer the buzz of being in studio with another person. And I suppose I'm more used to it as well. But yeah, it's fun. But yeah, I'm on 5. I'm hoping to kind of keep it at 5 for a while.
Good stuff.
Yeah.
What about chemistry? Very important in breakfast. I suppose, Adam, you were managing teams in Northern Ireland.
Yeah.
Do you find it difficult to match up presenters, or how do you go about that?
I think it's probably the most difficult part of trying to work through what that schedule might sound like. So it's interesting that Elaine's been through 5 co-presenters. You know, presenters are that's a more difficult question for me to answer even than Brexit, because the chance of upsetting people is magnified. You know, what I think is really important is that you pilot your presenters properly, and you pilot that chemistry. And I think, and this is an admission, I think that too often in the case of certainly our schedule, we have been in a position where in order to make a change in another part of the schedule, we put 2 people together, and we just expect it to work. And that doesn't work, actually. You might have 2 people who are astonishingly talented in their own right, but the chemistry is absent. And I think that if you're in a position where, and I think breakfast is the best part of the schedule, but it's also the most difficult part of the schedule by far. You've got so much competition, and you've got competition as far as people's lives and what they can afford to take in during that time of their day. So it's a very, very difficult period. But it's such a wonderful part of the schedule. It allows, as Niall was saying, people to start their day with a relationship with somebody on the radio. All of that's brilliant, but if the chemistry's not there, your breakfast show will not do what it's supposed to do. So my advice is pilot any co-presenter combination that you're thinking of, and pilot for a couple of weeks. Don't just give it a one-off. Really go into a separate studio, work at it, work on your handovers, your segues, your chemistry, bring other people in to that mix, or doing the news bulletin or weather, whatever it might happen to be, and construct that in a way where you've got a relationship that you can develop, rather than expecting it to happen accidentally, because it might not. Even though as individuals, your presenters could be absolutely outstanding on their own.
Ian, you're a lone ranger in the radio world.
Yeah, I've never had a co-presenter on a breakfast show, so I would have been dumped by Elaine after about a week, I'd say.
No, I was left.
Oh, were you? All right, okay, it was
yeah.
the other way around. They ran. But just on the chemistry thing, it is very important. And I remember there was a great quote from Chris Evans was saying about Terry Wogan. We asked him about breakfast shows, and he says, have you any advice about preparing for my breakfast show? He was taken over from it, and he says, and Terry just looked at him with a twinkle in his eye and says, they either like you or they don't. And it's a bit like that. And it's the same with your relationship with your listener, that they either kind of connect with you in some way or they don't. And it's the same with all those guys that you've got rid of.
Yeah.
But you kind of have a team, though. You've got the traffic.
Oh, well, that's it. I mean, I
news.
have lots of co-presenters in a way, because, I've got Mario Rosenstock, who's in like twice during the show. A lot of the time it's live, and it's great fun. So, I can react with somebody. I've got Paula McSweeney, who's down there in her beautiful fur coat. Fake fur, though, isn't it? Fake fur. And it's from Penny's, I believe. Yeah, it's lovely. Very nice. So Paula's there, and she does the showbiz news. I have Kim Buckley on the news, Paul Collins on... I used to work with Des Cahill. I was the ignoramus, the guy who didn't know anything about sport. I've continued to be the ignoramus on Today FM. So Paul Collins does that. So, I have lots of opportunities to talk to people, but there's no one person who can, co-present and have kind of... not so much, I can't use the word equality anymore, but that it's not about that kind of thing where 2 people are coming in and they're the thread all the way through the whole show. So it keeps changing all the time. But I'm happy enough. I suppose it's probably unusual nowadays, because a lot of people do this kind of round the table stuff.
The double header or the triple header. I suppose that leads us on to the element of preparation. Do you meet as a team after the show, before the show? How does that work for you, Ian?
We meet obviously, because of the time that it's on. We meet after the show. First, the way it normally works is we meet before the show as well. But if you take it for the next show, for say Tuesday morning, you would meet after the show, 9:00. Mario, myself, and another member of the team, whether it's Charlie Halligan, the producer, or Shauna O'Reilly, who is one of the researchers. One of us will meet. So there's 3 of us, and myself, Mario, and whoever that is, will be there, and we'll talk about the next day's gift grub, what we're going to do, what's topical. Will it be talking about Brian Redmond and Dancing with the Stars? Will it be talking about the rugby? Will it be whatever? So we have that meeting. Then we have a meeting about the show. We talk about any problems we've had in the show. We look back at what we've done. We look forward to the next day. We plan something that's going to happen in the future, like Easter, or what we're going to do for that, if we're doing any outside broadcasts or whatever. So we have that kind of a meeting. Again, it doesn't take that long. It takes about half an hour or whatever. And then everybody goes off and does their thing, and I go and I visit all the news agents that I run around the city of Dublin, so... No, sorry, that's a lie. No, because a lot of people think that, 2 hours a day, God, you have it easy, haven't you? So I mean, you do actually do other things. And I also then would go home and head straight for the napping thing, which I do. I don't know whether everybody else on the panel does it, but it's an absolute civil right now at this stage. I used to feel guilty about it, but now it's I am now going for my nap. See you in a couple of hours. Bye.
Right,
Gone.
lights out. Bye-bye. What about, Elaine, from your point of view? Obviously, you have a busy gig, young family, you have the music to do. How do you operate in relation to trying to organise a breakfast show for the next day?
So when Andrew and I finish up, we share an office. Our desks are right beside each other, so that's good. Even if I'm getting on with the music and he's getting on with his other jobs, we can always just be chatting about ideas that we come up with across the day. So it's kind of a free-flowing kind of, we're both just sitting at the desks chatting thing. But then I was saying earlier, I mean, it keeps going right across the day, so we would be in touch with each other. We're like WhatsApping each other, or we're on Snap with each other about things that maybe we've just spotted online, things we might do the next day. So it never really stops. We're kind of just in touch all the time. And then he comes in a lot earlier than me, so I'm going to hang on to him for a while, I think. So he's in before 6 every morning, and we're not on air till 7. I'm usually at home at that stage then. I'm getting a few bits, just going through my phone, looking through the papers, whatever. I'm actually not at my desk then till 6:30, but that's just because I couldn't find a childminder to come to my house any earlier than that. Okay. But my boss is here, so if I could, I would be in way earlier. At 5, probably.
Very dedicated, very dedicated.
Yeah.
Adam, I suppose from BBC Radio Ulster's point of view, the morning show, phenomenal numbers. How does that operate in relation to the setup, the planning?
Yeah, if you hit meetings, we're the wrong place to come and work in, really. You're taking it again from the day before. Our first planning meeting is around 11 o'clock, 11, half 11. And then the day producer starts in, and then a team comes in the afternoon. There's another meeting at 4. Then we'll do a big telephone conference call at 6 with the presenters, just to talk through what topics are on the programme, to give them a chance, because the reality of a speech breakfast show is that you can't expect everybody to be an expert in, the Hadron Large Collider, or whatever it's called, and Brexit, and Irish rugby. You've got to give people a chance to get briefed in. So that 6 o'clock conference call is really important. Just get everybody across the agenda for the next day and give them a chance to brief themselves in. And then they'll come in the morning at about 5, and then there's another meeting, just very quick meeting at 5, just to say, right, well, here's how we're going to divide stuff up. Here are the lines we're looking for from particular stories. So if we've got a big guest on, what are we going to focus on in the questioning? Because you have a limited amount of time in a speech radio programme. It's not realistic to expect every interview to take 30, 40 minutes. It's not going to happen. So you have a limited period of time, and there are things that you're going to want to get from that interview. So you have to have a quick meeting to talk about that. Then we go on the air at 6:30. And we do a post-programme meeting at 9 where we discuss how it went. So we do talk it through a lot, and we knock stuff about. And I sort of expect people to say, listen, I don't know where to go with this story, or I was thinking of doing this, or I was thinking of doing that. What are your thoughts? And I think one of the struggles that speech programmes have is that sometimes we just assume far too much knowledge on the part of the audience. So what I'm most interested in is how you treat a subject to make it easy to digest alongside all the other things that people are trying to digest in the morning, including their breakfast. You know what I mean? It's important that whatever we're giving to them is not going to just make their heads hurt for 2.5 hours. How can we be conversational and informal and at the same time useful, and give people the information that they need to make sense of what's going to happen during the day, make sense of their life, make sense of the society around them and what's coming up.
Okay. Niall, head of station sound, so
Yep.
breakfast in the morning, head of station sound for the rest of the day. How does your day pan out?
Well, we try to do a catch-up at 10, the three of us, where we'll bounce around some ideas for the following day, but then I get quite distracted with music and management meetings and all that kind of stuff. But the two lads work alongside each other, so they're continuing through the morning, bouncing some ideas, and they'll email me stuff through, which we'll kind of look at lunchtime. But the conversation, as Elaine said, is it's ongoing all day, so maybe WhatsApp messages in the evening, emails with, have you seen this story? We need to be on it, tomorrow morning at 7 a.m. or whatever. So it is very much an all-day thing, ongoing all the time.
Okay, so what time do you switch off then? Or do you switch off?
Not during the week, no. We switch off for the weekends. Kind of Monday to Friday morning, it's constant. Because I'm a bit like Ian, the siesta is everything in my life. Everything. You will not get me between 4 and 6 in the afternoon. That's my kind of sleep time, and then I'm back on it in the evenings, kind of seeing what's going on in the world and working on some bits and pieces. So it really is only on a Friday evening you open that bottle of wine, and it's very pleasant.
Only on a Friday?
Only on
Totally,
only on a Friday.
Saturday. So what time is bedtime then?
Well, myself and Elaine were talking about this just beforehand, and I would rarely be in bed before midnight, 12:30. But then I get my hour and a half, 2 hours during the day, so I probably get about 7 hours a day, like most people, but probably about 5 hours at night and 2 hours in the afternoon.
Okay, Ian,
It's
bedtime?
like a working on an oil rig, really, isn't it? Well, I tried to do about an hour and a half, but sometimes it goes into about 2.5 hours in the old afternoon. But I go to bed at about 9:30. But I watch a lot of television, so I could be watching Ivan Yates and Matt Cooper and that kind of thing. So it could be 12 o'clock when I actually go to sleep. So I get about 5 hours and 2 hours, so I get about 7 as well. Same sort of thing. But I'm not the head of anything. Okay, I just do a show, because everybody else seems to be ahead of something as well.
Not yet, Ian, not yet. After today, you never know. Elaine, bedtime for you?
This wasn't on the list of questions at all.
Well, it was.
Yeah, I get about 5 hours at night, and I don't get any nap during the day, guys.
What?
Nope.
Oh.
So I'll have to sort that out.
Women,
Right.
eh?
Women.
Women
We don't
power,
need
yeah, you
it.
don't need it.
I don't need any nap during the day. No, I really can't have one. I'd love it. Like Niall was saying there about it's no longer just a 2 or 3 hour show, and we're doing so much video now as well.
Yeah.
And Andrew and I go live, Facebook Live every morning about 10 to 7. And we do kind of a little mini version, about 4-minute video of what we're going to be doing in the show. So we'll do like a look at the papers, we'll do the top trends, we'll have a little bit of crack about what we did the night before, So like we find that's working really, really well for us. So I would say to anybody who's not using video a lot, that you really need to get involved in it. And we're getting great, great feedback just out and about from people who maybe we didn't realise were listening to us, like a different demographic maybe. And we feel like we're reaching a lot of people with our Facebook Live videos. So I do think it's very, very important. I'll keep talking.
We're going to have to show
You
Is that
say
on?
something.
Oh, no, now we're back. Right, we're back in the air. We just went under a bridge there for a while. So I suppose you brought in the social media aspect, Facebook, all that type of thing. Adam, is that more important or as important as the on-air bit now?
I suppose what I would say about that is that you've got this range of tools at your disposal now, and people are constantly switched on, which I think is probably one of the toughest things about breakfast and the breakfast gig, that your downtime is limited. You guys are talking about your days, and your days are full on every day while you're on the air, and you have this range of tools at your disposal. And I think every way that you can connect with your audience is useful. And I think that if people can feel part of the show, even though they're not across every element of the show when it's being broadcast in a linear form, is good. I think the thing that's really important though is that your content, it's got to be your content. Your content, this is an old-fashioned thing to say, but your content has to be really, really good. Mm-hmm. And I think that that's sometimes where, if I was saying to particularly local radio stations, if I was going to concentrate on something from a stories perspective, okay, because journalism is obviously my background, we face a situation where local newspapers in the world are under real threat and under real pressure. And if what happens in America happens in Ireland, the local newspaper industry faces huge, huge challenges, and we can see some of that happening in front of us. And I think it was Michael in the session before was talking about collaboration. And I think there's something in how we collaborate so that there's no democratic deficit. Okay, so there's all this information all over the place, all this data all over the place. And our ability to kind of sift through that and understand and make sense of the world is quite limited if we do it in individual terms. But if we work together, we can find ways of telling stories and helping each other out to try to explain what's going on in the part of the world where we're broadcasting. And I think on that social side, for us, I'm not interested in just branding. I'm not interested in just marketing and chucking stuff out there. What we do on the social side has got to make sense in terms of engaging with the audience about stories, looking for stories from the audience, looking for new angles. We get so many stories now from Facebook where we'll put up a story about, say, hospital waiting lists, and somebody will come back and say, well, listen, you will never believe what happened to my mother. She's been on a trolley for 60 hours. And you suddenly have this conversation opening up with the audience about what they're going through. And as long as you don't treat that as just a source of information, and as long as you treat those people with respect and genuinely use it as a conversation and go back to that person and keep that conversation going and reflect their experience of life, I think the social side, the social platforms can be very, very useful. I would just say it has to be about the content, though. The content has to have depth to it.
Yeah. Do you think, Ian, that breakfast has changed? Has it as a show?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think people they can access you much quicker. Everybody can access everybody now. So it doesn't matter whether, before there was always this kind of barrier and you'd get a letter or you'd get an email even from somebody. But now with Twitter and Facebook and all that, I mean, it's absolutely instant. And they will tell you literally in seconds whether they like something, whether they don't like something. Yeah. So, I mean, it is a big bit of a decision. I think it's going through a bit of a transitionary period at the moment and everybody's trying to find a level with it. So you have to say, do you engage or don't you engage? And I would advise strongly not to engage with listeners who are kind of slagging something off straight away. Give yourself time, think about it, and whatever, because it can ruin your day for a start. And apart from that, it can ruin your show as well, and you can become distracted by all of that kind of business. Just on the video thing as well that Adam was talking about, like it started off that people were putting up videos that were on YouTube by other people. And they were kind of just saying, go to our Facebook page or go to our website and you'll see this kind of thing. At least now I think most people are putting up their own content, which is a good sign. So that's going in the right direction. Whereas before it was other people. So you were just basically plugging other people, for them. Yeah. But I think it's completely changed and probably for the better. I mean, it's not going to go backwards. So we might as well just get used to it. I mean, like Coca-Cola used to put cocaine in their drink as well, and then they took that out. So things move on and things,
It goes downhill all the way after that.
we can't live in the past, can we, Andy?
I think Ian makes a really good point there, not about the cocaine, but about just in case I'm quoted on that, about that instant reaction that you get on social platforms. You do have to be really, really careful. And your producers, I think, you need to play a role in protecting your presenters from some of that nonsense that goes on. The pressure with social platforms is to react immediately. Whereas what you actually, and Ian's absolutely right, step back, assess what has come back, consider it, and put it through whatever channels you need to put it through before you go back. But do not take that stuff seriously. There are people out there whose entire interest in life is to troll and make people feel bad. And presenters are human beings too, believe it or not. You need to create a buffer so that, as Ian says, if Ian's day is ruined, his next show isn't going to benefit from that. So, it has to be treated with a bit of care and respect as well.
Because I know for those that saw Christian O'Connell yesterday, one of the things that he spoke about was the Manchester bombing, right? And as a breakfast show presenter, how do you deal with that? How do you deal with that? I suppose, Elaine, how did you, or how do you deal with that?
You can't ignore it, and you have to sort of reflect just about the mood of your audience at that stage. I don't know how much of an impact it would have had on our show in Kerry, but we certainly, of course, would have been mentioning it. But it wouldn't have taken up a lot, it would have been what's in the papers, and then obviously then it's in the news headlines at 1:30, then it's in the news headlines at 1:15, so I feel like it's taken care of by the news. But when something huge like that does happen, you sort of you gauge, I think, the mood of your audience, and you try and go along with that. But your job as well, though, is to keep things going and to keep things going as normal. And routine is so important, like we were saying earlier, and familiarity. So people are expecting you to get on with the day as well, you know?
Yeah, of course, yeah. Ian, were you on air for 9/11?
I was, yeah, and we were talking about 20 years of Today FM. That was one of the things we were talking about. I mean, so after 9/11, that happened at about 2 o'clock in the afternoon, Irish time, the day before. So the next day, everybody was just talking about that. So I remember Mark Costigan, who was one of the news people at the time, he just came in and we just stopped doing everything and we just started talking about it, and we had footage and we had reports and we were talking, and then listeners were kind of joining in. And sometimes, it's very rare, but sometimes I think you just have to forget about your formats, forget about your plans for the day, forget about your advertising sometimes, and just sit down and start doing it. And I mean, it seemed that we were a shoulder to cry on almost for the people who were listening, and they reacted in such a way. And this was before Twitter and whatever, so I mean, it was kind of texts and emails and phone calls we were getting, but I think it was the right thing to do at the time,
absolutely. You know. Niall, how did you handle
Yeah,
it?
I think we were quite lucky in our show in that I come from a speech background. Vinny comes from a news and sport background, and Trish has worked in speech before as well, so that we can park the show if we need to, and we have on occasion. The one that sticks out in my mind was the Berkeley balcony tragedy. For our audience of under 35s who are young and they've travelled and they've done J1s and they've parties all over the world as Irish people, it really hit hard. So we just stopped the show, and there was a Waterford girl who was over there, and she was in Sacramento, and she'd gone down just to find Irish people on the streets, so she spoke to us. And with a Carlo listener whose cousin was unfortunately one of the girls involved. And we just dealt with it, and we obviously changed the music and stuff, because sometimes I think you do have to reflect the mood of how your listeners are feeling.
Yeah, well, I think there is a listener expectation that you do deal with it and you just don't brush it underneath the carpet. I think those days are gone. But have we much time left, Teresa? No? Lisa? 2 minutes. Right, well, I'll go to the floor. Any questions from the floor? Dave Kelly.
Hi guys. FM 104 and Q102. I'm all about content on breakfast shows. Christian O'Connell was here yesterday and he was telling all about his soiling incident. He went a little bit deep, to say the least. The question I have for you is, how in depth do you let your listener get into your personal life? And if so, how important is that for the show?
Yeah, Niall and I were discussing this earlier. I mean, I think it doesn't work if you don't let people in. And I've had a couple of my 5 co-presenters who absolutely flat out refused to share anything of themselves with the listeners. And I said it to them. I said, this isn't going to work. If they want to know you. Now, obviously, you have certain things that are off limits. But I think when it comes to sort of daily routine in your life and what you do after the show, and you go collect the kids and you go do their homework, I think you have to let people into that stuff. And the audience needs to know, like, they know you, and they need to know that you're just like them. That's the most important thing to them, I think. You know, they don't want to hear really what nightclub you were in on Saturday night. Our audience doesn't anyway. They probably want to know your kid wet their selves going in the car or something. You know what I mean? Like some kind of a simple story about daily life.
They don't want to know, or they do?
No, they want to know that stuff. Yeah, they do. And we find the most mundane stuff gets a reaction. You know, it's like we're leaving to go somewhere. We're 5 minutes on the road to Dublin, or are we nearly there? Or I need to go to the toilet, or whatever it is. You know, but I do think it's really important that you let people into your life a certain degree, and obviously you can't let them in completely. But would you agree with that, Niall? That it's not going to work if you don't let them in?
It probably depends on the kind of breakfast show that you're running. If it's obviously it's not necessarily going to work so much for a news and current affairs breakfast show. There's some breakfast shows.
It better not.
There's some breakfast shows that are built on entertainers, comedy, kind of funny guys. It may not necessarily, but certainly for our show, which is based on real lives and reality, and some of the things Christian talked about yesterday about heart and being open. It's been a huge thing in driving our audience in terms of us opening up about what we do and in our lives, how we feel about things. And sometimes you can even go too far and you kind of go, did I actually say that? Did I tell that story on here, you know? But it's really important for us.
Okay, very good. Dave, that answer your question? Thanks. Anybody else? Any other questions before we wrap up? No? We're good? I just have one more question. Christian O'Connell is on his way to Australia. I'm sure there was money involved. I'm sure he's not going there for the love of kangaroos. But Elaine, would you go?
To Australia?
Yeah.
With him?
Well, no, maybe not with him. Although... If the offer came to move to a different market, would you move?
I don't know. I'd have a lot to think about. Obviously, I've mentioned it a few times. I have a daughter. She'd be my priority, really.
Right, okay.
When it comes to thinking about any kind of a big move like that. So I'd have to weigh everything up, I think.
Okay. Ian, big check?
Just when you mentioned that there, it's all, my whole world is opening up. I never even thought about that. Yeah, Australia.
Co-pres.
Very good.
Christian and Ian, yeah.
I wouldn't have any plans to do that at the moment, but
Who knows?
Yeah, I'm probably maybe, at this stage, I'm the old dog being taught the new tricks, I suppose. So I'm not really. I might be a little bit beyond. It's more for young people like 16-year-old Elaine here beside me. Now that she's getting the naps.
Niall, would you go?
I don't think I would at this stage. If I was 10 years younger, maybe, but I'd have the same kind of fears that Christian spoke about yesterday in terms of would what I do, would my shtick work over there.
Yeah.
Now, I do think the Irish would travel quite well to any market, but no, I do like Ireland and living here. So.
Okay. Adam, USA, tempting?
So, Andy, we've no government. We've got Brexit on the horizon. I've alienated my co-presenters in the breakfast programme. Give me the ticket.
Right, folks. You've been a great panel. Thank you very much indeed. Ladies and gentlemen, please put your hands together for Elaine Kinsella, Ian Dempsey, Niall Power, and Adam Smyth. Thank you.
Thank you
very much.
Thank you.